Alright, in this video we're going to learn how to use our basic chords that we learned in the last video and find a way to play those same sounds and find a way we can play them that will be a little easier for us to play when it comes time to actually play the tune. And the first thing I want to do is recap what we had in the last video, the three basic shapes. So first was our one chord, B flat major, B flat, D, F. Then we also had our four chord, E flat major, E flat, G, B flat. And then finally we had our five chord, which was based on the F, and the notes were F, A, C, E flat. Alright, so the reason we're going to talk about how we can find some different shapes to use is because it gets a little clumsy if we have to move between the chords to play them in what we call, the way I showed you, which is called root position, because it's always based on having the lowest note be the note the chord is based on. Here's our one chord, four chord, five chord. So let's say, I want to go between my one chord and my five chord. It's going to get clumsy because I'm going to have to go like this. As you can see, it's a big jump because every note has to move sort of a similar distance, and all my fingers are moving to completely new keys. Same thing, let's say if we're going between our four chord and our five chord, our four chord and our one chord. So what we're going to do is basically find a way to keep the same sounds that we learned from the basic chords, but find a way to play them so that it's a little bit easier in our fingers, so it's less to think about, so we can start to focus on some other things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the order that the notes come in. Alright, and it'll be clear why we did that as we move along. So before, we had our one chord starting with our B flat and in the bottom, our D and our F. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to take the same three notes, but I'm going to play them in a different order, in a different octave. Okay? So instead of B flat, D, F, I'm going to play F, B flat, D. Now it has a slightly different sound, but it's basically the same chord. We're just communicating it in what we call a different voicing. So again, we've gone from B flat, D, F to F, B flat, D. Alright, so there's our new shape for our one chord. Alright, and now what we're going to do to think about our goal of finding shapes that are easy to play is we're going to try and move to our other chords by moving our fingers as little as possible. So now what we're going to try and do is go from our one chord, which is spelled out like this, F, B flat, D, to our four chord, and by moving as little as possible. So to recap, our four chord was in root position, E flat, G, and B flat. So those are the three notes we're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of look at each finger and figure out what I want to do. So this F, I'm going to move it up to the G. Okay, so the F that was here on my B flat chord, I'm going to move to the G for my E flat chord. So I get that note. Now my B flat that was here from before, I'm already doing really well because I don't even have to move it because there's a B flat in the E flat chord, right? And again, if this is a little bit tricky, you can always rewind it and take a look at how the notes are moving and how they relate to the basic chords. So anyways, we've got our F moving to the G, our B flat staying the same. So it's pretty much a no-brainer. We know that we need to get an E flat to spell out our E flat chord. Our D is sitting right next to it. So we'll move it up here. So here's our new shape for our E flat chord that we're going to use. So we have G, B flat, and E flat. Compare that to our original shape. And all we've done is basically move the E flat up an octave. But now, if we take a look at moving between B flat and E flat, we'll see how much easier it is on our fingers. So here's our B flat shape, and here's our E flat shape. B flat shape, E flat shape. One chord, four chord, right? To me, that's way easier than going. Now we're just going. and it's a nice smooth transition. And the fancy term for that is voice leading. But let's not worry about that for now. All right, so we've got one chord left to go, and that's our 5 chord. And just to recap, our 5 chord is F, A, C, E flat. Remember, it had that extra note. It's a 4-note chord, so we really want to get the sound of it. So we're looking pretty good already, aren't we? Because if we go back to our 1 chord, remember our goal was to figure out the other chords by moving as little as possible. We're doing pretty good. This B flat can move down to the A here. We got a couple of fingers free here for the C, and the E flat is just waiting for us. So we can go from our B flat triad to our F7 chord really easily. Now, another variation that we can come up with, if you're concerned about going from a 3-note chord to a 4-note chord, you can always just leave out the C. All right, so that's totally an option, and it'll look pretty much the same. So we have F, B flat, D, our B flat chord, and then F, A, E flat for our 5 chord, or F chord. So as we can see, basically we can keep pretty much the same chord we learned before, and it fits nicely in our whole pattern. Okay? And again, you can play it with the C or without. It's whatever's easier for your fingers to deal with. All right. So let's recap. We took our basic root position B flat shape, B flat, D, and F. And what we did was we moved these 2 notes up an octave. So we have F, B flat, D. That's our basic shape. All right. And we wanted to figure out how to play our E flat chord, our 4 chord, by moving as little as possible from the shape. So we ended up playing it G, B flat, E flat. All right. And then we took our 5 chord and we tried to figure out the same thing. So for a 5 chord, we wanted F, A, C, which is optional, and E flat. And we wanted to find a way that it would come from this shape for our from our B flat chord. And we have F, B flat, D, F, A, C, E flat. So what we've discovered is we've now found a way easier way to move between our 3 chords. We can go from B flat to E flat, E flat. So that's B flat to E flat. We can move from our B flat chord to our F7 chord. We can move from our E flat chord to our B flat chord. We can move from our F7 chord to our E flat chord. So basically, we've got a lot more control over these 3 chords. So right now, just to recap, I'm going to play each shape, and I'm going to kind of let it sit for a second. And I'll put the symbol up on the screen so you remember the names of the chords and what they look like. And then we're just, you can, rewind and play along with some of these shapes. All right? So, again, here's our B flat shape. I'll let that sit for a second. F, B flat, D. Our 1 chord. Here's our E flat shape. G, B flat, E flat. Let that sit there for a second. That's our 4 chord. And then we have our 5 chord, our F7. F, A, C, E flat. Remember that C is optional. If you don't want to use it, that's fine. It'll still sound pretty much the same. All right, so those are our 3 chords. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move from 1 chord to another, so that way you can practice and make it easy for your fingers to do the same kind of thing. So we're going to go first from our 1 chord to our 4 chord. It's going to look like this. So our B flat to our E flat, B flat major, or B flat, to our E flat, and back. All right. Now we're going to move from our B flat major to our F7 and back. B flat, F7, going to do it again without the C, just so you can see how it sounds and looks. Here's B flat, F7, back to B flat. All right, and now we're going to do E flat to F7, which is the only combination we haven't checked out yet. Here's E flat, our 4 chord, to F7, our 5 chord, back to E flat. I'll do it again without the C. E flat, our 4 chord, to F7, our 5 chord, back to E flat. So it's really that easy. And basically that's the only voicing shape we're going to learn for now. And that'll get you through the whole tune. And we can start to look at, in the next video, how these 3 chords actually fit into the tune. So we can start to play along and see how things line up and how they sound.